Right now we're coming up on 7:44. If you're like most of us, you've either had the flu or know somebody who's had it, or at least a cold. But how do you know when it's time to take your kids to the doctor? When should they go to the urgent care? When should they go to the hospital? This morning, Dr. John Firestone is a pediatrician at the After Hours Care at Children's Hospital, and he joins us this morning with, excuse me, the answer to some of these burning questions. And sometimes, you know, a cold can really mimic the flu. And so how do you know for sure when you've got one or the other?
Well, the symptoms are going to be very much the same. I think it has more to do with the
severity? The
severity, the intensity, the momentum of the illness. If you have an illness that starts off like Alvin Kamara returning a kickoff return, you got to take that more seriously. Also an illness that is mild for a couple of days and then suddenly gets worse, it's the shape of the illness that you have to look at.
And is there always a fever with the flu?
There usually is, and it's usually going to be higher than you may be accustomed to. Although I would say we look more at the shape of the illness than any one particular number.
Okay. However, for children, especially for infants and things like that, if the child or baby does get a certain temperature, that's the time to take him or her to the doctor.
If you talk purely statistics, the number involved is 106. If you know, where does an illness become more likely to be bacterial?
With a temperature of 106?
With 106, right? It's higher than people think it is.
I thought it was like 102 or so.
Well, I think doctors start to be concerned about temperatures in that 102.5, 103 range for a different reason. Although statistically, a child's not more likely to have a bacterial illness at that point. Their awareness, their alertness changes at that temperature. You start getting a much more tired and sleepy child, and those things are hard to differentiate. It's hard to explain over the phone how tired is tired appropriate to 103.
And let's talk about the differences in the cold and the flu, how you tell it, because the flu is so much more serious. Thousands of people die every year from the flu.
That's true, especially at both ends of the age spectrum.
Below 5 and above 50.
Below 5 and above 50. The flu, you are more likely to have more systems involved when you have the flu. So
meaning?
If you're having headaches, if you're having muscle aches, if it's a different intensity of coughing, if you're having stomach, the more different parts of your body that are involved, the more likely it is to be the flu.
Or it's just hard to get out of bed.
Right. It's intensity and how fast it happened. You know, my wife went to have coffee with a friend who's in from out of town, and came home from that and immediately had to go to bed. And I knew immediately, just because of the intensity and speed of that she probably had the flu.
And a cold is spread differently than the flu is spread.
Colds are spread. Well, many viruses are spread by touching other things.
Yeah.
The flu is spread through aerosols, and that's
like a sneeze or things like that.
Sneezes and coughs, and that's part of the reason why it comes around in the wintertime, because the conditions of humidity and temperature make it easier to aerosolize and stay aerosolized longer and actually survive longer.
See, I knew the cold makes people sick. That's what I've always said. It's not really the cold, but it just comes around.
It makes you get the flu more.
Okay.
It doesn't make you get other illnesses more, but certainly we know it makes you get the flu more.
All right, doctor. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.